everyone, this is Tamara from shelfaddiction.com, and welcome to episode 42. We're back again live today, recapping and reviewing the third episode of The Walking Dead Season 7. If you're listening live, leave us a comment on Spreaker. We want to hear your thoughts on last night's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it. Show your support by rating the podcast and leaving a positive review. Thanks for spreading the PCS love. The podcast can be found on the Spreaker app, iTunes, Google Play Music, the Stitcher app, and more. Joining me today is PCS co-host, fellow TV junkie, and indie author, Lisa Orban. You can also check out PCS recaps and more on Lisa's YouTube channel, The Talking Book. Want to comment on something you've heard during today's episode? You can find me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. You can also find Lisa on Twitter at Lisa Orban Author. Hey Lisa, what's up? You ready to do this?
I am so ready to do this. I'm feeling good about this episode. What about you?
I liked it. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny because we had talked about last week that, any society that's built on fear and intimidation can't sustain itself. It's going to rot from the inside out.
Yep.
And that's what this episode was about.
Absolutely.
More or less.
And you know what? I kind of, I might be jumping ahead here a little bit, but I see some clear predictions written on the wall as far as some of these characters to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and there was that moment there on the road, and he's like, there's nothing here for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me go, because he's one man. If we all just got together, which is, what we had talked about.
Yeah.
And of course, he went, was shot anyway and strung up on the wall. But
but you know what, though? It planted a seed for Dwight. It really did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's kind of interesting to see the evolution of Dwight and his wife, and how things have descended since we saw them really. I mean, we've seen him now and again with, like, when he shot the one lady from Alexandria, the doctor lady.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, when Daryl was with them, and they're almost completely different people right now.
They've been broken. They've been brought down to their knees.
Yeah,
literally.
And it's really kind of sad because it's the lie that Negan is telling them, which is there is nothing else. It's either all mine or it will be mine, and it's not going to be, because he can't sustain much more than what he has already.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is fear of one man cannot hold very much territory for a very long time.
Well, as long as everyone is drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, it can hold for a while, but it just takes that one person, and Daryl is that person, because, like he said in the end, virtually, he has nothing to lose. He has no one for him to hold over his head. He can hold out until he dies.
I had some trepidation about him making that statement to Dwight.
Yeah.
Because they could string him up in front of Alexandria and basically tell him either submit, or they're just going to start randomly shooting people in Alexandria. So,
yeah, but they already kind of did submit, and I feel like that's almost why Negan really didn't do anything to him, because he still needs him alive.
Yeah. Well, and I think he has kind of a perverse affection for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find it kind of interesting that Dwight has taken all of Daryl's things, and he's taken his bike, he's taken his crossbow, he's taken his jacket.
They're almost like mirror images, almost.
Yeah, and it's like he idolizes Daryl,
mm-hmm.
even as he's doing all these terrible things and wanting him to submit. It's almost, I think he's almost even looking for a validation, because if he can break Daryl, then it can justify everything he's ever done.
See, and I look at it differently. I think, what if, like, the way he was looking at Daryl in the end there, I feel like he almost might wonder if he could see some hope there.
Yeah, and I think that's, and towards the end, I think you're right, but there at the beginning, when he had a completely dressed in Daryl's attire, and bullying people around and stealing their stuff to make this sandwich, which was very important to him.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I mean, That's really all he has. I mean, he's lost everything else. He can take from other people. He can take from Daryl. He can take from strangers. He can take, but he has nothing left. He's lost his freedom. He's lost his wife.
Yeah.
You know, Negan has taken his wife.
I know, and maybe that's why he feels like, hey, I can do what I want. I have the power. I'm gonna do what I want because I have nothing. Because the man even took my dang on wife. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
You know, he doesn't care.
And I think that's part of how Negan has ordered these things. You know, he has taken everything from them and broken them, and then said, okay, now you can take stuff from other people, but you know, and it just kind of perpetuates that cycle, because if everyone has nothing, but they're always trying to take something from somebody else, you know, they're all living these, and you can see it throughout the entire place. They're living these very empty, meaningless lives. They're going through the motions, but there's nothing there.
Do you think that, I lost my train of thought just there. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. It's really crazy. Everything that Dwight was doing. Do you think that makes you feel any kind of sympathy toward Dwight? Or is he still just a bad? I mean, do you feel differently about him now that you kind of got a glimpse at his origin story?
You know, in a very vague kind of way, but not really. And here's why. They had gotten away. They were away. They could have gone. Daryl was getting ready to ask them to join up with them in Alexandria. You know, there is King Ezekiel's people, which we didn't know about at the time, but they are there, and he knew about them.
Yep.
And he could, I mean, and if King Ezekiel is there and Alexandria is there, then there are other places. You know, because these guys aren't all that far from each other. So, I mean, if in this one small area, if there's already 3 flourishing, well, mostly flourishing, they're alive, and there's Hilltop. You know, so there has got to be other places and other places to be. So they made a choice, and they made what I think is what they thought was going to be the easy choice.
They made a dumb choice, because clearly they didn't know, or they made some assumptions about how far Negan would really go, because they had no idea how bad it would really get.
No, and they didn't, you know, but I think it was, they succumbed to what they considered the easy choice. It would be hard to find a new group. It would be hard to travel through the Walking Dead zone. It would be hard to, you know, fit into a new group.
But you know what, in the end, like, if you think about what could have happened, so let's say they did join up with Rick and his group. He could have told them about Negan. Exactly. And they could have been prepared.
And everything. Right, and could have known exactly what they were getting into. They wouldn't have blindly gone in and slaughtered all those people at the radio station. You know, they wouldn't have made the choices they did. And all they had to do was turn their back on Negan. Mm-hmm. And they went, you know, he's a terrible person. It's an awful place. But there's food and there's security. And, well, and they really made the easy choice. So I don't feel bad for Dwight.
I don't
because
either.
He cowered out, and fundamentally, in the end, that's what he is. He is a coward. He is, and you can see even throughout the episode, he's always taking the coward's way out.
Yeah, definitely.
Everything.
It's that whole make your bed and lie in it type thing. Like, you know what, you did this, now you have to deal with it. It doesn't make me feel sorry for you, even though what's happening to you is dreadful. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, it's terrible. It is. I mean, and now if he had been drug in there, like Daryl had been, and then gone through and had been broken, and, you know, and he was just there because he didn't think there was anything else. But they had left. They were gone. You know, and I don't care how far-reaching Negan thinks he is, that they had gotten far enough away that if they had just kept going, they could have just kept going.
Right.
And I realize there's a certain principle to it for Negan, but there's also a certain practicality to it. He knows he can't go beyond a certain point. In his power zone, he is all-powerful.
Right.
But as soon as he gets out into that, you know, that outer edges, he knows he's weak and he's vulnerable. And
so what about Sherry, though? Do you feel any kind of way about her, or do you sympathize with her at all, or do you kind of just feel the same about her as you do about Dwight? Like, you know?
kind of feel the same way because she was right there with him. Give us
Yeah.
your stuff. She's holding a gun on Daryl, going, we're here, we're taking all your crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel bad for her, but she made choices. I mean, they made a choice, and they should have thought about, what's the worst possible scenario? Oh, well, he could kill us. All right, we can work with that.
I mean, he would smash our brains in like he did with all those people on all those photos that they've taken. I mean, did they not think about that?
I mean, so it's not like they didn't have an inkling of what kind of person Negan was. It wasn't like they didn't understand what they were going back to. They knew. And they still went back thinking, well, it's still easier. I mean, and so, no, I don't. I kind of feel bad for their situation. I kind of feel bad for her. People do make dumb mistakes, and they should be able to redeem themselves from that mistake. And I don't think that either one of them are technically beyond redemption. But do they deserve my pity? They don't.
No. Well, I do like that, like the part specifically where Sherry kind of was outside the cell, well, two parts where when she kind of warned him, like, don't do it. You're going to get caught and things are always going to get worse. So she did try to warn him. And then again, she apologized essentially like, look, I regret doing that. And it was a bad choice. And, you told me things were going to, go a certain way for me, and it did. And I regret it. And it was like, well, at least she realized.
Right. And I mean, it's not that they can't realize what they have done. And I think now it's, the question is going to be, are they going to continue to take the coward's way? Which is what they have both been doing. They are taking the coward's way out. Whether they see it as survival or however they're looking at themselves, when they look in the mirror. Or will they stand up and say Negan is one man?
Not all of us. Speaking of that, Negan is one man. I mean, that guy, to be so crazy, he is smart. I mean, he has brainwashed them into saying that they are Negan. Like, how in the heck do you even do that? Like, it's ingenious.
I think, and I did find out an interesting little factoid. Corey was doing some research on him last night, and it turns out that from the comic books, Negan was a high school coach. So he is used to rallying the troops and strategy and getting those, and because part of being a coach is getting people to think alike and work in unison. And there is no I in team, and he has taken those lessons and strategies and applied them to this very real life terrible situation. And so even that point where he's pointing at people and what is your name? I am Negan.
Right.
And so he is trying to get them to no longer identify with self.
Right.
But with him, and not as their society.
Right. And I'm glad that they did that because, when they were saying that in season 6, it really didn't hit home exactly what they were doing or why they were saying they were Negan, but it kind of connected now. Yeah.
It's a way of strengthening their tie to Negan himself, while at the same time not bonding them to each other either, because they're not with them, they're with him, and just with him. He doesn't want strong attachment, strong bonds between the various people in his organization, because he knows that he is one man. And so by keeping those ties and keeping those bonds limited and focused solely on him, it does give him unusually high power.
It does. I mean, even when they, he told the little story about Dwight and what happened. And I mean, Dwight is just standing there looking like he wants to say something. He wants to, but he keeps his mouth shut. He wields that power with his knee on their neck, there is no way he is going to give you a half an inch because he just won't let it.
Humiliation is part of what he, and just anything that can kill someone's self-esteem, their confidence. I mean, he'll build it up a little bit, in certain areas. Oh yeah, you did a great job hunting hunting that walker or doing this. Oh, is things working down there? Followed up by,
hey, do you want a night with your, go back to your wife for a night? Hey, he even offered that up, and he's like, what? He's like, no, I don't. Thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah. And I think, and Negan's always testing all of his lieutenants and stuff too to see their loyalty. And I think everything Negan does is kind of a test. If they will comply, I'll send Dwight out to bring back one of his oldest friends, so to speak.
Yeah.
Will he do what I say? Is this gonna, it's a test.
That's got to be exhausting, like to always be in that frame of mind all the time.
Yeah. I mean, he has basically about 200 people in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
and people go, well, I would never do that. Well, it's, abuse is one of those things that's just not, it doesn't happen overnight. And you can see that this is something that he has been building up to.
Right.
And, and he had that big finale thing with, the beating of Glenn and, yeah. Anyway, but we'll just go with it. But that wasn't all that he did. I mean, there was that psychological buildup to it, and I mean, at any point in time, they could have stopped them at the roads, and they could have engaged. But instead, they just harried him and harried him and harried him, and then there was that whole big thing in the RV with Rick and throwing him out with the Walking Dead and bring me back my my axe, and there's going to be more.
Yeah.
This isn't kind of a one and done kind of thing. He will continue to grind in this lesson. And so it is. I mean, it is very much an abusive relationship that he has with all of these people, and it's fear, and all it's really going to take is one individual or a small group of individuals to eventually stand up and take him out. And everything will follow.
And honestly, it would be so, like, here I am. I'm thinking, how could I be sneaky if I were Daryl? I mean, that last time he gave him the chance to answer, Negan instead of his name, I'm thinking to myself, just say what he wants you to say. And then you can get in there and be like, psych, gotcha. And then you can have your team of people and you'll be okay. And you can beat them.
And that's what I was thinking, too.
Yeah.
But I think there's also... I think Daryl, I would have said, fine, my name's Negan, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of person I am. It's not necessarily weak, but it's practical. I'm a very practical person.
Yeah, I would have said it too. I'm with you. I'm in your lap, but I would have been like trying to be sneaky, building, something behind the scenes.
Right, because once you get to that certain level, I mean, he will still be watched, but there is an ability at that point to start networking and testing, who might be able to be trusted, who won't be able to be trusted. But I also understand why Daryl is doing what he's doing. Someone needs to stand up to Negan. Someone needs to say, I will not yield. Yeah. And people are seeing it.
Yep. And that could be more powerful, probably.
Exactly. And so every time he stands up to Negan, no matter what Negan does to him, and he says, no, I will not yield, that's making these other guys look and say, wait a minute, there's 12 of us standing around a guy with a baseball bat, but we have guns.
Yeah.
Huh. Or I have a crossbow or whatever. I have a knife. The fact is he could not stand. I mean, don't get me wrong. If there's 12 of them, he's got the baseball bat. There's going to be injuries. But he could not stand against all of them.
Right.
And so there is something very powerful about Daryl just saying, I will not yield.
Yeah,
it
is.
And I think that's what he is trying to do. I don't know so much inspire hope, but let's face it, Daryl has lived a very hard life, and he had Earl as a brother.
Oh, I know. And he's really just building his tolerance for abuse.
Yeah.
Like, keep on. You're just building a tolerance right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the fact of the matter is Daryl did not have a great life, and he has lived through, actually, small scale, the abuse that Negan is doling out wholesale at this point.
Right.
And And he has come to realize that, after being with this group and breaking away from Daryl and breaking away from that cycle of abuse that he had lived in prior to the zombie apocalypse, that all it takes to break a strong man is to not yield.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what he is trying to do. He's like, I have done this, and I have seen this, and this has been my brother, and this has been my life, and I will not. This is it. This is my line that I will not cross.
Well, he is in for a long haul. I'm telling you. I feel like he is. It's going to be a while. Many days of abuse. Maybe I don't know how long this season is going to be in the form of days, but or weeks. And I don't know what how they're traveling in time, and I do know that they don't want to give you a clear sense of time with him because he doesn't have a clear sense of time with them locking him in the room and the dark and everything, and that
the music.
Song,
God.
you can't sleep. That song is playing, and I'm like, that little irony of the song that they're playing.
Yeah, I know. So you have all that going on. But it's I think things are moving along at a little bit faster pace than they have the last 2 seasons, I think, as far as time frame goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much ground they're going to cover or how far ahead they're going to try to go in the comics, but this is shaping up to be a really awesome season.
It is. And you know what, though? Like I was saying earlier, I enjoyed the episode too, but when I was doing some, looking at what other people thought about the episode, some people said this episode could have had more in it than just this storyline. What do you think?
We have had so much packed into such little time frames, and the season premiere was so traumatic for so many that I think that episode, slowing it down, taking it easy, really introducing us, because King Ezekiel is going to have this real big role here coming up, and getting to know him, and not just, hi, how's it going, nice to meet you kind of thing, but actually getting a chance to see him in the various aspects of him, not just the King Ezekiel part, but as the person and the man behind the myth, literally in this case. And, watching Carol, trying to put to rest her demons, and even the Morgan and his transformation of going, maybe I wasn't 100% correct. I made mistakes, and my mistakes had, it cost us Alexandria. It cost us this. It cost us a lot. And I think, that coming to terms with, and it kind of gave us a chance to catch our breath and come to terms along with those characters who are doing the same thing.
So what about this season, episode 3? Did you think this had a slower pace, or did you think it was faster?
I think it was faster than the second episode, but not anywhere near as fast as the first episode.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I kind of felt like it went fast, but thinking about it, I don't know, 10 hours after watching it, it could have been a little faster. Would I just jump at rewatching episode 3? Probably not, but I feel like it was a strong episode, regardless, just because of the progress that was made as far as, Daryl. We were all anxious to see what happened to him.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're talking about torture here, and torture isn't an instantaneous thing. Trying to break a person's spirit is not an instant thing. It takes time. And I think they were trying to, show that time elapsing, but in a way that didn't drag. So, like him making the sandwich at the beginning of the episode, that wasn't a single day thing. It was, this was an accumulation of days or weeks, and then the days of Daryl being fed the sandwich over and over again.
The dog food sandwich. Oh my God. Look, sandwich. I'm like, what a contrast. That's what I'm saying. They're like mirror images. Dwight has this awesome, pretty looking, top chef looking sandwich that he put together, and Daryl gets dog food on bread. Yeah. I'm like, oh God.
But there's also when you see him making that sandwich, you also realize that none of this was his. These were all things that he took from somebody else for a variety of reasons. Some he just basically knocked over and said, it's mine. Mm-hmm. And in other cases, there was a little stealthier, like with the eggs. But, all the same, that sandwich was not by any rights his.
You know how Negan runs his group kind of reminds me of a poorly ran wolf pack. And the only reason I say that is because, like, the good wolf packs, they have a sense of family, but the bad ones, it's the alphas and everybody else. And it's just like, I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to kill or knock over who I have to get what I want. And that's the mentality they have. It's like, you're either alpha or you're nothing. Like he said, you had like 3 spots you can be in, right? That's it.
Right. Well, now, interesting, what I thought of, have you ever read the book 1984?
Oh my goodness, in high school. That tells you how long ago.
Yeah. But if you notice, the social strata is about the same. There's the workers who have literally almost nothing, and then you have the lieutenants, which have a much better life and lord it over, the peons, and then you have the very, very high elite, which we never actually get to see in the book.
Yeah. But their lieutenants, if you're associating it that way, their lieutenants aren't really getting it that good. They're on the point system.
Yeah. No, because, I mean, in Negan's, there's Negan at the very top. He is the ruling class. And then he has his lieutenants who have it pretty good. And then he has the point system for everyone else. And it kind of reminded me, and it's that same, the tattling on each other. And, how he said it, how in 1984, part of the power comes from everyone tattling on each other. And no one being sure of each other, and everyone being suspicious of each other, and always wanting to run and, try and curry favor with the higher ups. And
right.
And you see a lot of that going on in this episode. This stratification that's going on in the 3 different levels that's going on in Negan's kingdom. And, and even when you're scrambling towards the top, the fact of the matter is you're never going to get better than what you have as a lieutenant, because Negan's not sharing nothing.
Yeah, no, he's not. I don't know, Negan, this just makes me hate him even more. He is the worst, the kind of person. I mean, I almost want to say he is worse than the governor. He is worse than the governor.
Yeah, he is worse than the governor. Oh, I don't know, did you watch the Talking Dead afterwards?
No, I didn't.
There is a little thing. I guess Negan was actually approached on the not Negan himself, but the guy that plays him was approached in the street, and this woman was demanding, "I want to know where you live. I can't believe you're doing that to Rick and his group, but I'm gonna get you. Tell me where you live."
Oh my God! Like, was he like, "Ma'am, that's pretend. It's pretend. It's on TV."
And Daryl's going, "Yeah, I'll tell you where I live," and he's like, "Well, Norman, shut up."
Wow.
He's like.
But that's a good sign that you're acting very well when people believe that is actually how you act.
I know. He says it was really kind of this very abrupt awakening. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm really a bad guy."
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really a bad guy.
I wonder if we'll ever get, I'm sure we will, but I guess it's just how long we'll have to wait to get Negan's origin story.
Yeah. Like I said, as far as I know, he was a high school gym teacher, and his wife died during the zombie apocalypse, and apparently he barricaded himself in the room with her, and then he had to kill her with the only thing he had available, which apparently was a bat.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know how the Walking Dead producers like to do. The writers, they have a good time playing around with the story, so.
Exactly. So it may or may not be something like that, but that is technically his origin stories as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was not anything special. He was just a mediocre gym teacher who had gotten into a lot of trouble because he was, mean to his students.
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, if he treated his students anything like he's treating these people, he should not have been a teacher. He should not have been a coach.
Oh, I'm sure he kept it. I'm sure he didn't beat them to death. But, I mean, the tendency was probably already there. He wanted to be in charge, and being a gym teacher was a way to bully people around and get his way and yell and scream and do a lot of socially unacceptable things in a socially acceptable format.
Yeah.
And, so he took those lessons and he ran with them.
Wow. Well, you know what? Let's see. Alex Santos on Vox.com said this one sentence that I thought was pretty hilarious. Let me tell you. Let me find it right quick. He says, let me see if I can find it. I know you guys can probably hear typing. Sorry about that, but I want to find this quote from his review. It was like, wow. I'm like,
You know,
okay.
I do know that I really am enjoying this season a lot. And I think even more than I did last season. And I enjoyed last season a lot. But
Yeah?
they seem to be getting stronger. And I like the unpredictability of it. And I like the fact that we're meeting a lot of new characters and we're not just, dealing with the same people all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the people in Hilltop and the Kingdom and everything, I think, things could start getting really interesting.
Yeah, definitely it could. I mean, there's so many things that could happen here, and I don't know. It could go a lot of different ways. I mean, I have some predictions, but like I said before, I should really write them down to see if any of them happen.
Well, we could go through, we could write down our predictions, and say, okay, people, these are, the ones that we have and keep track of them. And every time we're right, we'll check them off. And every time we're wrong, we're like, yeah, we failed.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, here it is. Here's his quote.
All right.
Okay. I get the impression that Negan is being written by grown men who are trying to impress the teenage boys who bullied them growing up. I'm like, wow, he doesn't like that character.
He really is. I mean,
Yeah.
he is your typical high school, grade school bully. And, he's got the bat. Granted, it's wrapped in, barbed wire. But, I mean, it is a instrument of childhood, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
It's an instrument of gaming. It's not for the real life, and he is using it to intimidate and strike fear into people. And he is a massive bully.
Oh yeah,
he's a terrible person.
Yeah, he's no.
And I don't. The governor had a few, not many, a few redeeming qualities. But as far as Negan, I have yet to see a single one. He's just an egomaniac that is probably grateful for the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, I wouldn't hate it completely if, they gave him a little more dimension. I mean, he's just a big bad. He's just like the worst.com, basically. And I mean, it wouldn't, because even with the governor, he was bad, but we even saw, well, he was a little, he had some issues.
Yeah.
As we know, Negan does too, but I mean, I don't know. Everyone is this way. Not everyone that is just crazy is just crazy for the sake of being crazy or being, a murderer just because they enjoy it. They actually, it's important. I think his origin story is really going to be important to making this all kind of gel.
And I do like the fact that not every group that they are going to meet in Alexandria is going to be a terrible group. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that they have met, the Hill Tower group and the Kingdom group, and both of those are actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
They're both under Negan's rule at this point, but they are still decent, and they're not terrible, and they're not trying to be the big bag. They're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that as the seasons go on, that we will start meeting more groups, and it won't just be, oh, every other group we meet is terrible,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I know they need that. I mean, they need it for intrigue, because if everyone was, really nice and welcoming, then we'd be like, it's boring. Do something already. So
right. And, I mean, they need that push and pull, but for the last, almost every group that they had met here in the last season and a half, I think, up until they met the group at Hill Tower, had basically just been awful.
Yeah.
The ones that threw him in the train, and, the cannibals.
Terminus. Oh, my goodness. Speaking of Terminus, I saw a connection there. You know how Daryl was wearing the letter A? On that thing, on that container that they were putting at Terminus, it had the letter A.
Uh-huh. Yes. Apparently the letter A shows up quite a bit throughout this series. I'm not sure why.
Like, I'd like to find out how that all, comes together eventually.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw it, I'm like, Scarlet Letter? They're untouchable, they're, ruined, soiled, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, so it's been kind of nice to see this kind of mix where we do have Negan. He is terrible. He's an awful person, but we've also got King Ezekiel, who is obviously not a terrible, awful person, and Hilltower, which is somewhere in between. The ruler's kind of a quack, who's a little bit bent, but they're not terrible. Exactly. And so it's nice to start seeing a little bit more humanity to be found, as opposed to cannibals, and
exactly. So, I hear you.
So anyway, but overall, I did enjoy this episode a lot. So, and I'm really interested to see, because I'm pretty sure next weekend is going to be Negan Comes to Alexandria.
Oh, I know. We get to watch Rick act like a driveling baby. Oh.
Well, now I did see the sneak peek from The Talking Dead and for next week's episode, and it was Michonne sneaking into the house that her and Rick live in and getting a high-powered rifle that apparently she had hid in the chimney out, and then slipping out of the house, and she's kind of looking around and acting like she doesn't want to be seen, and as soon as she leaves the house, Rick kind of steps forward and he's just kind of staring. And so I don't know if she's thinking, well, I can sharpshoot,
She probably thinks she can take him out. I wonder if she feels like she got a raw deal. The minute she hook up with him, he started acting like, like, what? I didn't sign up for this. What is this?
Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe she might be putting herself up on a hill tower and trying to take out Negan. Yeah. So if she does, all I can say is I hope she don't miss.
Oh, she better not miss. Because she's gonna have. It's gonna be big problems if she does.
Oh yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think that's Michonne's plan. I think she wants to do her whole watchtower thing and see if she can take him down. And I think Michonne has also accurately figured out too, kind of like we have, is that if Negan is gone, while that group is still a threat, they are nowhere near the threat that they would be without him or with him. So I don't know.
Well, that was that was doozy. That was interesting. Yeah, I'm excited for next week. I think it's going to be a great episode. So what do you think? You think we're finished dissecting episode 3?
I do believe so. I think we have done a good job dissecting and psychoanalyzing. And
yeah, I think so. Yeah, you guys, be sure to check in next week because you want to be here and give us your feedback. Let us know what you think about the show. We'd like to hear it.
Oh, yes. We would love for, comments and, join us. And if you have anything interesting to say, we'll bring it up while we're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I guess we're out of here, guys. Thanks for listening today, and we'll see you next time. And before you go, please hit that follow button on Spreaker, the only place where you can listen live, or subscribe and listen later on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, YouTube, and the Spreaker app. Thanks for listening. Until next time, happy viewing. Bye, guys.
Bye.